Life would have been scarier if dinosaurs had stayed on Earth. But guess what? There were creatures even bigger and scarier than dinosaurs. Let's talk about them one by one. Dunkleosteus. Dunkleosteus was a fish that lived around 370 to 360 million years ago. This was way before the time of dinosaurs, during an era known as the Mesozoic era. Dunkleosteus was big, about 26 to 32 feet long, and it lived in the water during the late Devonian period, also known as the Age of Fish. Now, despite its fearsome appearance, Dunkleosteus didn't have regular teeth. Instead, it had two long bony blades that could crush almost anything. It wasn't picky about its food. It ate fish, sharks, and even other Dunkleosteus. The blades in its mouth kept sharpening themselves as they rubbed against each other. Dunkleosteus could generate up to 8,000 pounds of bite force per square inch. To put that in perspective, a lion's bite is only around 650 pounds per square inch. Dunkleosteus had a powerful bite, but its weakness was being too greedy. It often suffered from indigestion, and fossils of this ancient fish have been found with regurgitated and half-digested remains of fish. So, it might have been scary, but it wasn't without its problems. You might be happy that Dunkleosteus is not around anymore. Megalania. Giant lizards used to roam Australia about 2.5 million years ago. The biggest one was called Megalania, and it was as long as a car and weighed around 4,300 pounds. Fossil remains suggest it lived up to 50,000 years ago. Megalania wasn't picky about its food. It would eat large animals, marsupials, and even ground-nesting birds and their eggs. With its sharp teeth and strong limbs, hunting was easy for Megalania. It could run really fast, up to 10 feet per second. What's more, some similar lizards have venom, and Megalania might have too. If so, it could inject venom into its prey, making it bleed more and causing serious harm. This would make Megalania one of the scariest lizards ever, especially since it was also one of the largest. So, in the end, these ancient giant lizards from Australia sound pretty terrifying. Helicoprion. This creepy fish lived 270 million years ago, was 20 to 25 feet long, and is one of the most puzzling fossil mysteries for scientists. It all started with the discovery of strange petrified teeth that looked like fossilized fruity roll-ups. In 1899, Russian geologist Alexander Petrovich Karpinski named the creature Helicoprion, thinking the weird teeth were part of a shark-like fish. He guessed that the unusual feeding apparatus was attached to the fish's nose, like a rolled-up party horn. But for over a century, the fossils confused scientists. In 2013, a study led by Leif Tapanila from Idaho State University finally figured out that the coiled tooth row filled the lower jaw in a buzzsaw-like formation. As the fish aged, new teeth kept forming at the back of the lower jaw, with almost no upper teeth. So, how did Helicoprion catch and eat its prey? Scientists suggest that as the jaw closed, the toothy whorl rotated the teeth backward in a saw-like motion. If that wasn't scary enough, the biggest Helicoprion ever found had a 2-foot-wide jaw. Luckily, this terrifying buzzsaw killer went extinct 225 million years ago. Terra Birds. Scientists called the Forus roscidae birds Terra Birds for a reason. They were pretty frightening. Even though a meteor wiped out dinosaurs like T-Rex and Velociraptor, Terra Birds took over as the top predators in South America for a whopping 60 million years. These ancient birds were about 10 feet tall, had feet similar to T-Rex, and a beak that could fatally hurt a horse with one strong hit. They started ruling when South America was an island before Central America existed. While other places had saber-toothed cats and wolves as top predators, South America had mostly plant-eating animals, making it easy for terror birds to find food. These fast birds had a beak like a pickaxe, perfect for cracking the skulls of smaller animals. Their bony heads acted like a giant meat tenderizers, and they probably used their huge clawed feet to attack their prey. For 60 million years, 17 different types of Terra Birds came and went until they vanished about 2.5 million years ago. Platybelladon. These are the creatures that turned an ordinary elephant into something terrifying. Instead of a regular trunk, picture a huge fleshy spork attached to its face. This might sound like a wild idea from a creative 7-year-old, but it was a real animal that lived 8 to 20 million years ago. Unlike today's elephants, the Platybelladon had a peculiar jaw with a second pair of widened tusks, which are basically modified incisors. Scientists used to think these teeth were for shoveling, scooping, digging, and dredging soft plants in watery areas. However, in 1992, paleontologist David Lambert suggested they were also used like scythe-like weapons to cut through thick vegetation. Ancient creatures wandered in Asia, Africa, and North America during the Miocene era. Instead of hanging out by the water, Platybelladon roamed on land, munching on plants. It used its trunk to grab branches and its built-in scythes to cut them down. The strange thing is, these fleshy spork-shaped parts don't fossilize as easily as bones. So, we're lucky to know anything about these odd creatures. Fortunately, some Platybelladons did us a favor by dying near rivers, making it easier for their fossils to form. Even though they probably wouldn't have been a big threat to humans if they were still around today, there's no denying that Platybelladons had one of the weirdest faces in history. Andrewsaurus. It might sound like a friendly name, but this creature is scarier than a dinosaur. Even though we've never found a complete skeleton of Andrewsaurus, a part of its skull discovered in Mongolia in 1923 was almost 3 feet long. The leader of the expedition, Roy Chapman Andrews, thought this creature was a meat-eater because of its huge teeth. He named it Andrewsaurus mongoliensis after himself. This skull is the only specimen we have of this terrifying species that lived in East Asia around 36 million years ago. Scientists guessed what the rest of Andrewsaurus looked like by comparing it to another prehistoric creature called Mesonyx. The result? A 16-foot-long, 6-foot-high nightmare. Imagine a heavily built wolf-like animal with 4 short legs, a long body and tail, and hoofed feet. Its snout was terrifying, filled with big, bone-crushing teeth. It could have weighed anywhere from 1,764 to over 2,200 pounds. Andrewsaurus is the largest meat-eating land mammal ever known. Surprisingly, it's more closely related to hippos and whales than other meat-eaters. Since we only have a skull and a few bones, we're not sure if it actively hunted or just scavenged for food. Either way, I wouldn't want to cross paths with it. Arktodus. Imagine meeting a huge 700-pound grizzly bear today. That would be terrifying, right? Now, think about what it was like 2.5 million years ago when there was a bear called Arktodus. This bear was almost 3 times bigger than today's grizzly bears. People nicknamed it the giant short-faced bear, or bulldog bear. Experts think these bears weighed more than 2,000 pounds, and they were over 12 feet tall when standing on their hind legs. That's way bigger than early humans, who were only about 4 feet tall on average. Surprisingly, these giant bears only disappeared about 11,000 years ago because of changes in their living spaces during the Ice Age. This means that some early humans actually came face to face with these huge bears not too long ago. But there's more to this bear's story. Arktodus was super fast thanks to its long limbs evolved for hunting. It could run as fast as 40 miles an hour, even though it was incredibly heavy. With a keen sense of smell and great eyesight, it was a fierce hunter. It used its 4.5-inch long canines to bite into giant bison and ground sloths regularly. Its large jaws could crush bones to get to the tasty marrow inside. Arktodus had a bite force of 2,000 pounds per square inch when it bit into its prey. For comparison, a regular grizzly bear has a bite force of only 1,160 pounds per square inch. So, Arktodus was 3 times bigger and had twice the bite force. That makes regular grizzly bears seem not so terrifying after all. Argentavis. Birdworld is a scary place. A massive shadow suddenly covering you, making your spine tingle. What could it be? A falling tree or a crashing plane? Well, about 6 million years ago, it might have been a huge bird called Argentavis, the largest bird ever. This carnivorous creature, weighing 154 pounds, as heavy as a human, had a wingspan of 22 feet, almost as big as a small aircraft. Its skull was even longer than a human forearm. But how did it fly? Argentavis was a glider, like today's eagles, using rising columns of hot air in the hotter Miocene climate. Unfortunately, as temperatures dropped, these giant birds couldn't glide as well and likely died out. Argentavis was part of a group of monster birds called Terra Birds that could reach speeds of 43 miles per hour, scan large areas quickly, and spot prey from over 2 miles away. Imagine one of these monsters circling above you, ready to swoop down with its sharp beak and giant talons, scarier than a dinosaur's roar. Dunkleosteus, a creature from over 350 million years ago during the Devonian period. Despite its cute name, it was a jawless nightmare. Unlike the friendly Dory from Finding Nemo, Dunkleosteus had a terrifying, elongated, spiked snout used to catch crustacean prey. Imagine a devilish swordfish with added spikes. At only 1 foot long and around 1 pound in weight, these sneaky fish would slice up anything in their path, giving them the perfect opportunity for a sneak attack during the Age of Fish. Megatherium. Sloths are adorable, no doubt about it. Imagine a slow-moving, big-eyed, fuzzy baby in a basket. It's one of the cutest creatures on Earth. But hold on, there's a giant sloth predecessor called the Megatherium, and it's mind-blowingly huge. The Megatherium lived in South America around 5 million to 2.5 million years ago. It was like an elephant in size, specifically Megatherium americanum, which could weigh up to 8,800 pounds and stretch 20 feet from head to tail, standing almost 7 feet tall at the shoulder. This creature, able to walk on its hind legs, holds the title for the largest bipedal mammal ever, about 800 times bigger than today's sloths. Over time, sloths took a different evolutionary path, giving rise to a smaller and cuter version. Why did this happen? Well, it seems the smaller sloths found an advantage. They could climb higher up trees, avoiding the competition for food with their gigantic relatives stuck on the ground. And that's the story of how sloths went from intimidating giants to the cute, slow-moving pals we know today. Titanoboa, a gigantic snake that once ruled the swamps of Colombia around 60 million years ago. This snake was a true monster, measuring nearly 50 feet long and weighing a whopping 2,500 pounds. To put that into perspective, it was 10 times heavier than the green anaconda we know today. Imagine a world where everything was hotter, wetter, and bigger than it is now. Titanoboa thrived in this ancient environment, dominating a vast and swampy jungle just a few million years after the dinosaurs disappeared. The fascinating thing about Titanoboa is its enormous size, which defied the usual rules of physics that govern how big creatures can get. Most large animals, like the blue whale, benefit from living in the water, where gravity has less of an impact. Scientists believe Titanoboa took advantage of this, spending a significant amount of time in the water, similar to a modern-day anaconda. As for Titanoboa's diet, it was an ambush predator with a simple strategy: eat anything it could catch. This massive serpent hunted large reptiles, including giant turtles and even crocodiles. It relied on its incredible strength to squeeze the life out of its prey. The mystery of why and when Titanoboa became extinct remains unsolved. But just think about the chaos these enormous snakes could cause if they were still around, posing a threat to us humans. Jalopterus, a massive sea scorpion that lived around 460 million years ago during the Silurian period. While most sea scorpions were small, about the size of a human hand, Jalopterus was a nightmare-inducing giant reaching up to 8 feet in length. This ancient creature had a segmented, paddle-shaped body similar to a horseshoe crab, but much larger. It moved swiftly underwater with its oar-like back legs, chasing after prey. Jalopterus was armed with huge spring-loaded claws that measured up to 18 inches across, allowing it to snatch up fish with ease. If this giant sea scorpion existed today, its powerful claws could have been used to grab and crush prey, even humans. Unfortunately, the reign of Jalopterus, along with other eurypterids, ended around 252 million years ago due to the Permian extinction, which wiped out over 96% of marine life on Earth. Hallucigenia, a strange creature that lived 400 million years ago. Scientists had a tough time figuring out what it looked like because, well, it's extinct. This thumb-sized worm baffled researchers for over 50 years, making it even more challenging than usual. In 1977, Simon Conway Morris, a British paleontologist, stumbled upon a peculiar 5-inch-long fossil found in the Burgess Shale in the Canadian Rockies. It had been classified as a type of worm, but Conway Morris disagreed. He thought this bizarre creature could walk on stilt-like spines and had tentacles on its back. He named it Hallucigenia. However, in 1991, researchers Lars Ramskold and Hao-Qian Guang flipped Conway Morris's idea around. What he thought were tentacles were actually legs, and the spines on the back were likely for defense. It took until 2015 for Martin Smith from the University of Cambridge to use an electron microscope and samples from the Burgess Shale to determine which end was the head. Surprisingly, Hallucigenia had eyes and a big toothy grin. Scientists still aren't sure what Hallucigenia ate, but its ring of teeth around its mouth probably helped it suck in water and food. Despite its small size, this quirky creature is undeniably creepy. Anthrop, a giant millipede from millions of years ago. This 8.5-foot-long creature lived during the late Carboniferous period, around 299 million years ago. Unlike the tiny bugs we see today, Anthrop was massive and a bit scary. This ancient millipede probably ate plants, like today's millipedes, but its size made it a formidable presence. Fossil evidence shows that Anthrop could move quickly, using its many legs to navigate obstacles with an eerie rhythm. Anthrop was the biggest land invertebrate ever, and it likely had no natural predators. With flexible bodies, these creatures could even rear up defensively and stare you down with their eyes if they had a reason to. Sadly, Anthrop and its colossal insect relatives went extinct after the Carboniferous period. The changing climate, with drying conditions and shrinking rainforests, played a role in their disappearance. Mosasaurus. If you love Jurassic World movies, you've probably seen this creature in action. But here's the twist. The Mosasaurus isn't exactly a dinosaur. It's more like a giant marine reptile, closely related to snakes and monitor lizards. Don't let that fool you. It's still pretty scary. A massive, warm-blooded carnivore that swam in seas around 66 million years ago. While we haven't found complete Mosasaurus specimens, scientists guess they could grow up to 50 feet long and weigh around 5.5 tons, bigger than a city bus and heavier than 2 adult rhinos. Now, if you take a closer look at the Mosasaurus from Jurassic World, you'll notice it has 2 extra rows of teeth in its huge mouth. This isn't just for show. Like today's snakes, Mosasaurus had special teeth anchored to the roof of their mouths, helping them grip and swallow prey underwater. Because they're related to snakes and monitor lizards, mosasaurs might have had large, forked tongues, but we can't be certain since soft tissues usually don't become fossils. Unsurprisingly, mosasaurs were excellent predators. Fossilized stomach contents reveal they dined on ammonites, bony fish, sea turtles, other prehistoric reptiles, and even seabirds. Their fossils have been discovered on every continent, including Antarctica. During the Cretaceous period, they ruled the seas as top predators until the KPG extinction event wiped out the dinosaurs and mosasaurs alike. Triassic Kraken. Long ago, fishermen told stories about a scary sea monster called the Kraken. They said it could flip over a ship and eat the sailors. People even made movies about these huge creatures. But did they really exist? In 1857, a scientist named Japetus Steenstrup found a big squid beak on the beach. It was about 3 inches wide. He said the kraken was real and called it Arktodus dux, or ruling squid. Since then, scientists have described about 21 kinds of giant squids from body parts found on the shore. These mysterious creatures live deep in the ocean, and it's tough to know how big they get because we rarely find whole squids. Some people think the colossal squid, the biggest kind we know of, might weigh up to 1,500 pounds and be 33 feet long. It's not as big as the kraken from stories, but did a huge squid-like that exist in the past?